You spent what on a car? How much? Hey guys, welcome to the Financial Minute. My name's Josh. So glad you dropped in today. If you're new here, please think about giving this video a huge thumbs up. Give it a big grand slam for me. Also, if you like this kind of content, please think about subscribing. Today we're going to be talking about buying a car. Well, I'm buying a car right now. I've bought quite a few of them in the past, both new and used, so I thought, well, this would be a good subject for a video. So let's get to it right after this. So guys, we're going to break this video up into two segments. Before you leave the house and once you get to the dealership. So we'll start with before you leave the house. Some of the stuff you should do before you even leave the house. Of course, this will all be online. So you're going to buy a new car, or truck, or SUV, or van. Before you can even do any research, really, you got to decide what you're going to buy. What style? Do you need a truck, a car, a van, an SUV? There's mid-size SUVs, there's wagons. There's like Subaru wagons, which are like a hybrid between an SUV and a wagon. They're like a swaggin. They're a swaggin. There we go. That's my own term. They're swaggin. But yeah, this may sound simple, but we started out with a truck. It had a four-door truck, so we could fit our family in it, and we used it to tow our trailer, as well as, you know, go out on family outings and get back and forth to work, etc. This was my vehicle to get back and forth to work, and my wife drove a little car. But then we decided we don't all fit in that truck very well anymore because I now have 3 children. I'm a happy father of 3, and so we decided we should buy an SUV. But because we tow a trailer for work, we thought, well, it's going to have to be a pretty big SUV. So we ended up buying a Ford Expedition. But you see, I didn't think this all the way through because due to COVID-19 in the future, we're not going to be towing a trailer as often, and we're going to be doing more digital content like this. So we're going to be doing less trailer towing and more digital content. And my father-in-law has a big truck to tow a trailer with for the few times we do need to. So now we're downsizing to a van. I won't call it a minivan. That's the Dodge Caravan. That was what started it all out. It was like basically a front-wheel drive SUV that got better fuel economy back in the late 80s, early 90s is when they kind of hit their heyday. But in my opinion, they're very versatile. I used to say I would never be caught dead driving one, but they are very versatile. They get better fuel economy than a similar size SUV, and they fit so much more stuff. It's so much easier to get stuff in and out of them. I don't understand why people have such a negative connotation towards the minivan or the Dodge Grand Caravan or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, anyways, I digress. That's what we're getting. I think, anyways. And so, yeah, that's the end of my story there. But, yeah, you do got to decide what style fits you best. And it's preferably best to decide that before you buy a vehicle so you don't have to do like we're doing and do a quick turnaround, which is a good way to lose a lot of money. So make sure you decide what you really want. Do you want a mid-size sedan? Do you want a full-size sedan? Do you want an SUV, a mid-size SUV, etc.? Very important to decide what you want. That's the first step in buying a vehicle. Before you even go anywhere, you got to decide that. So go online, do some research. I think you might even want to stop by a couple dealerships and just test drive some different styles without the plan on buying anything. Go there just to test drive. They don't need to know that, but just go there and test drive some different styles so you can get an idea of what you like. And then go home. Don't buy, go home, because you got some research to do. You got to figure out exactly what you want. But first you got to go to the dealership to test drive and decide on the style. Okay guys, I know I said part one was going to be before you go to the dealer, but now I'm saying you went to the dealer already. But you're not actually going to buy a vehicle. You're just test driving. You're figuring out kind of what you like. Do you like a sporty Corvette, or do you think that station wagon is going to do me better? Of course, those probably wouldn't be on the same shopping list for the same person, but anyways. So now you've decided, I want to say minivan. We'll call it a minivan, okay? Bear with me. We'll call it a minivan. I decided I want a minivan. I don't know if I want a Toyota Sienna, a Honda Odyssey, a Dodge Grand Caravan, but I've decided on my style. So now I gotta narrow it down to one or two, maybe three particular models that I want to look at. For me, I decided I'm going to look at the Toyota Sienna. Toyota's, super reliable. The Honda Odyssey, again, quite reliable. And the Dodge, just because they have some really, cool features. They did start the whole thing out. They've been doing it for a very long time. And they're known to be fairly reliable and very cheap to fix. So that's what I narrowed it down to. But you guys got to narrow down what you want. So maybe you want a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry or a Chrysler, I don't know, Sebring. No, not a Chrysler Sebring. You don't want a Chrysler Sebring. Trust me, you don't want a Chrysler Sebring. A Chrysler 200. That's your, your more affordable option. So I suggest you pick out 3 models that are reliable. So do the research, go online, Google reliability, top reliable models, etc., and pick out 2 that are super reliable, and pick out a 3rd one that's also quite reliable but much cheaper. So that will be, maybe a Chrysler, and you got a Honda and a Toyota. That's what I suggest. And then you got to figure out, does the price point work? I probably get a newer Chrysler with less miles on it than a Honda or a Toyota. But just do the research, figure out if that Chrysler is going to last you for the time you want to keep it. Next, you want to figure out how much is this vehicle going to depreciate. So I picked a whatever vehicle. I gotta go online, go into Kelley Blue Book. I like to download the app on my phone, the Kelley Blue Book app, and I'll just take whatever I'm looking at. Say I'm looking at a 2015 Toyota Camry. I want to figure out what that Toyota Camry is going to be worth in a couple years. At least an idea anyways. You're not going to get a perfect number. So I'll just take the Camry I'm looking at, put in all the specs, but go 2 years older. And put in the mileage. I'm going to say I do 15,000 miles a year, so I'll just add 30,000 miles for 2 years. Put in that into a Kelley Blue Book for a 2-year-old model than the one I'm looking at. And that'll give me an idea of what that car will be worth in 2 years with the amount of miles I'm going to put on it. That'll give me an idea of depreciation. You kind of want to compare depreciation across models that you're looking at, because depreciation is the #1 cost you're going to pay, even more so than repairs, at least hopefully. This may also help you decide on how long to keep a vehicle. Maybe if you're buying a 3-year-old vehicle, in 2 years, after that, after it becomes 5 years old, so 3 plus 2 equals 5, maybe after that they start to depreciate quicker. Maybe depreciation slows down. Generally, depreciation does slow down the older a vehicle gets, but sometimes it goes in waves. So, like, if there's a steep drop-off in values after a certain year, it might be best to get rid of that vehicle before you hit that steep drop-off. Okay, guys, so now we've decided the year, make, model of vehicle we want to get, at least an idea anyways. So now it's time to look online at actual vehicles that are for sale. Now, we're not going to the dealership yet. We still got to look online, see what's in our area to choose from, or maybe abroad. Shipping is always an option these days. But usually it's cheaper to look within your area if at all possible. So guys, all you have to look at basically is descriptions and pictures. But descriptions and pictures do tell a lot. Also, you want to look at the vehicle's history. A lot of the times car dealerships will have that on their website. So you can go look at the history of that vehicle. Definitely look at that. And look at those pictures. The more pictures, the better. Look for stains, dings, dents. A lot of people say to stay away from dents. I think one or two, dents could get you a good deal on a vehicle because a dent is fixable. It doesn't necessarily show that the person didn't take care of the vehicle. Accidents do happen. And now, if the dent looks really old, maybe you might be a little leery of it just because they didn't have the money to fix that dent. It might make you wonder, did they, what else did they skimp on? I can see that argument. But a couple dings, fixing a ding isn't always on people's list. So look for vehicles with a ding or two, not big dents, but I mean just like dings. Because you can negotiate on price over these things, and these are easy fixes. And a lot of people, you can just continue to live with those dings and save some money. Of course, that is kind of my opinion, A lot of people don't like dents in their vehicles. Totally okay. But yeah, at least know these things are there. You got to know the dent's there so you can negotiate around it or avoid it altogether. And look for carpet, and upholstery that is stained, especially with, if you can see in the pictures, look for watermarks. You don't want a vehicle that has watermarks in it. If that vehicle's been in a flood, just avoid it altogether. Also, guys, I like to avoid vehicles that have power washing done under the hood. A lot of dealers do that, and I don't think they should. Yeah, it makes the under the hood look nice, but it also covers up, you can't see the history of that vehicle. If parts have been, replaced, etc. If you look under a vehicle that hasn't been power washed or cleaned up, you can tell a lot more about that vehicle's history. So that's just me. That's my personal opinion. I understand it looks cooler if it's been cleaned, but don't necessarily buy a vehicle just because the under the hood's been power washed. It looks brand new, because unless the car is brand new, it didn't look that way, and somebody just pressure washed that. I like to look at vehicles that haven't been through the dealer's 42-point inspection or whatever they advertise. Because I like to just have my own mechanic do the inspection, and or myself. And if they've already done the inspection and they've cleaned under the hood and changed the oil, etc., it's really hard to tell. For instance, if the oil, if you take a look at a vehicle that hasn't had the oil changed by the dealer upon trade-in, you can tell, if the previous owner changed it. And how long ago they changed it. A lot of that you can tell just by, looking at the dipstick. So it tells a lot about that vehicle. Also, before you head to the dealership, make sure you have an idea of what to look for in paint work, body work, so you can kind of tell where a car has been fixed up. And of course, most dealers aren't going to know if body work's been done to that vehicle, but at least you will, and you can mention that, and that'll help in the negotiation. Not necessarily that you don't want to buy a vehicle that had some body work, but just have an idea of what body work is more severe. Certain panels that have been damaged are more severe than others, like a rear quarter panel. That's a pretty severe job. If that's been replaced, that car was hit pretty hard. Versus, if a front bumper cover was replaced, that's pretty common. Just somebody backed into it or whatever. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff you kind of want to have an idea about before you go look at a used vehicle. Okay guys, so we've kind of narrowed down the make and model of what we want. We've looked at some stuff available online, and we've kind of made a list of vehicles we want to go take a look at in person at the dealership. We kind of know what to look for. We've crossed our T's and dotted our I's when it comes to what we really want and don't want, and for options, etc. And now we're going to go take a look at, let's just say, 4 or 5 vehicles that we like online. I don't like to call the dealership and let them know I'm coming. I know some people do. They want the vehicle pulled up and ready to, go. I just show up and, find the vehicle. Hopefully you can find it fairly easy. If not, go inside and ask them where it is so you can go take a look at it. And if they offer to pull it around for you, don't do that. You want to see it in its place, unstarted, so you can pull that dipstick, look underneath it for oil spills, etc. You don't want it moved if possible. That's not always possible, but if possible, that's ideal. Because a lot of leaks can be picked up just by a vehicle that's been parked overnight. that's what you want. You don't want to buy a vehicle with unknown leaks. In fact, if there are leaks, I tend to avoid them altogether because leaks are usually pricey to fix. So, we're at the vehicle. Hopefully the car salesperson isn't there yet, so we can just kind of walk around it, see if it's something we're even interested in, going to get the car salesperson for. Looking for gaps in panels, etc. Do your research on what to look for in bodywork. We're looking for leaks underneath. What else? Signs that's been in a flood. Peek through the windows if if there's obvious interior damage, etc. And it's ugly inside. We want to skip it. So just looking for the obvious stuff. Hopefully, it checks out. Body panels look good, no leaks, etc. So we go get the car salesperson, and he gives us the key so we can open it up. Before we even start it, I like to look around the interior, see if it's even worth starting it. Because if we see water damage, etc., or heavy stains, stuff we don't want, and we're not even interested in buying this car, no point in starting it if we're not interested in buying it. But assuming it passes our interior inspection, now we're gonna start it up. So start up the car, and does it start easily? Any weird noises, squealing belts, etc.? Does the steering wheel vibrate? These are all things you're kind of noting as you start it. Before you start it, let's pop the hood actually and check the oil and check the fluids if possible. I know a lot of you aren't maybe into mechanically, you don't want to get messy and involved with the mechanics. And if that's the case, just kind of pop the hood, glance over it, make sure everything looks right. A lot of, you can tell if something doesn't look right. Something is taped or out of place, or something looks extra shiny. It's probably been recently replaced. Just glance and take mental notes of what could be wrong with the car. And then start it up. And if you're not the kind of person that wants to check all this mechanic stuff, make sure you bring it to a reputable mechanic that you trust before you sign on that dotted line. Also, guys, as you're doing all this, make sure you're not praising the vehicle over necessarily. You're pointing out the flaws of the vehicle, not over necessarily pointing out the flaws either, just the big stuff, and mental noting the smaller stuff when it comes time to negotiate prices and stuff. You can bring it up then if it's important to you. But don't be like, oh, this is the best car in the whole world, I want it, because all of a sudden your price just went up, because the dealer knows they got you. Your biggest benefit in our negotiation tactic is you have the ability to leave and go look at other vehicles at different dealerships, and you need to remind the dealer of that, the salesperson of that, so that he doesn't think he's got you. So make sure you're pointing out the flaws of the vehicle and maybe mentioning some other vehicles you looked at other dealerships that were nicer and or lower priced. So this can all be mentioned in the negotiation process if you do decide to negotiate. But I recommend looking at 3 or 4 cars. Leave dealerships, go look at a bunch of different vehicles. Don't necessarily get stuck at one dealership. Go back to the dealership and choose the model you like. Well, guys, this is a 2-part series. We're going to discuss all the ins and outs of once you actually do get to the negotiating table and to the finance room, etc. But that's a whole nother video. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up, give it a big like. That really helps out the YouTube channel, helps the algorithm show this video as much as possible. And as always, guys, remember, only you can make your financial dreams come true. Don't delay, get started today. I will see you guys in the next video. Be safe and God bless, and I'm out.